Right, hello and welcome to the Panachecast. This is Panache Software's LegalTech podcast, where we talk about all the latest news in legal tech and news and events and things like that. If you don't know who I am, I don't know what you've been watching since we started.
They must know. I mean, surely, but maybe they've been watching Love Island or what's that latest show that they have, the Alien show? With,
Stranger Things.
Stranger Things.
Like
I hear a lot about that. Yeah, that's what they're watching.
I mean, that would make sense to watch those kinds of shows, but
no. This is where it's
I mean, we talked last time about us getting a Netflix show. I don't think that's happened yet.
I haven't had a call yet.
We didn't. No, we haven't had anything from that. Until that happens, I'm going to have to tell you that I am Peter Davis, and as always, I'm accompanied by my co-host Neil Pemberton.
Hello.
Neil, there's been tons of news this week in legal tech and in everything else. I mean, I don't know what the most important things are we're going to cover this week.
Well, we've got loads of news stories, and in fact, we probably have to leave some out. Last week was a bit dry on news because I think people were on holiday or something like that, so we didn't have all that much, and hence the reason why you had to listen to us talking about project management. But I suppose probably the biggest news so far is we now know who the new Prime Minister is, and
brilliant stuff, isn't it?
We've been brilliant stuff. We've been saying for a while that we've got some guests coming on the show, and we've got some exciting news, and we actually have some very exciting news to announce that we actually have the new Prime Minister on the show coming in, and so I'd like to welcome Boris Johnson to the show,
our new illustrious leader.
There he is, joining us, and. Yes, for all the American viewers, this is the new Prime Minister who will be talking to Donald on our behalf. Quite a bit, yes.
They look quite similar, so hopefully you'll be able to tell the difference.
Yeah, I hope they'll be able to tell the difference. And he's got a lot of work ahead of him, more work than most people, I think, unenviable tasks.
I mean, I think I've said to a few other people, I mean, what could possibly go wrong with Boris Johnson as Prime Minister? It's
absolutely nothing. So I don't think he's got much to say about the show, so we...
But he's welcome to join us here to help energise us as he talks. He's constantly on about, and help us get going with this.
We nearly had his running mate, didn't we, Jeremy? But
good old Jeremy Hunt. Yeah, he was almost here.
He was almost here. He was viciously attacked by the dog on the way in.
Yes, unfortunately, and it sounds like something that we would make up, but no, the dog did eat Jeremy Hunt's image. So yes, he wasn't here to join us, unfortunately. But I mean, on behalf of Panache Software, and if you're a European or American listener or viewer and stuff, I mean, we can only apologise for the state of the British political system and what's about to happen. We'll apologise in advance because we've got no idea what's going to happen now. But it could be quite interesting.
It'll be interesting. It'll throw up lots more news stories. Not news stories that we will necessarily cover, but this was too good not to do.
Yes, yeah,
it's a big news story.
We will see. Yeah.
Should we remove him? He's going to have to leave.
Yeah, he's a busy man. Let's
put him out of the way.
I'm not sure people want to look at that all episode, so we'll get rid of him for the moment.
Yeah.
But okay. Well, as I said, there's been quite a lot of stuff happening in the last couple of weeks.
It has.
In the legal industry, there's been a lot of primarily acquisitions and things like that of and mergers of firms and investment. And my phone going off on something?
That might be Netflix.
Do you think was that someone from the government calling saying what were you doing?
Could be.
Talking about them. It's there's been news stories of some quite big organisations merging up. So we're going to talk about that. Again, we've had another great article by Mark Cohen in Forbes, which we're going to talk about because it goes into a lot of the stuff that we've been talking about previously and covers a lot of topics that he's discussed before.
And again, I mean, if he's talking about things that we've talked about before, it must all be absolutely right. So.
Exactly. I mean, we're on the cutting edge of this stuff, of news journalism. So, hopefully one day he'll put us in as a source, rather than just stealing all our ideas. But no, we cover that. So I mean, should we get going? Before we get going, let's just mention that of course you can follow us on YouTube and all the podcast platforms. Everything goes up on there, but of course we've got one of the better ways is on our Patreon site. So patreon.com/Panache Software. That's where everything gets posted up. and you can sign up there if you want to support the show.
And if you click follow, you'll get an email that notifies you when the show's released. And what better way to start your week than to get an email saying that the new episode of the Panachecast is available?
Yeah, and it's been fairly erratic recently, the upload times of things. So it'd be good to let you know when things are happening. So yeah, click on there, follow it, and you'll get notified when the new shows go up.
Yep.
But yeah, I mean, let's start off with I've put it in the news report as acquisitions everywhere.
Yeah. Well, there's two big ones to talk about, so we'll cover them in the same topic, if you like. So, Thomson Reuters makes transformational HighQ acquisition. That's one of them, and then Simmons Simmons acquires legal engineering firm Wavelength. Now, I think probably everybody who watches will have heard of all of those. Might not necessarily be 100% familiar with what everybody's doing, so.
This is the current scourge, and we've seen this on websites before and stuff, where you know the names and you go to their website to see what they actually do and come away none the wiser sometimes. But we'll hopefully cover some of that now.
Yeah, and unfortunately, some of the quotes aren't particularly detailed in terms of what they're hoping to achieve out of it either. But we'll do our best to piece it together. So let's start with Simmons Simmons and Wavelength. Wavelength, I think, markets itself, doesn't it, as an engineering firm, and they're not a pure legal firm in that sense. But nor are they, I think, a pure technology firm. So they're sitting somewhere in between.
Yeah, I mean, I dig that quote because they term themselves as legal engineers, and in fact, Simmons Simmons in their article. They talk about the acquisition of legal engineering firm Wavelength. So there may be some questions. Okay, what exactly is legal engineering? And one of the quotes I found on legal engineering, when I thought, is there anything good that someone said to mention what that actually means? I actually found a quote from Stuart Barr at HighQ, who is part of the other acquisition we're going to talk about. He wrote a blog post about the rise of legal engineering, and I think this was in like 2016, so quite a while ago he wrote this. But I thought it was a good quote to help you understand what the term means. And they basically list it as this role is the interface between legal experts and technology experts. So they understand both sides of the equation. So quite often people in that kind of role on those organizations, they either come in from a technology standpoint or they come in from a legal standpoint. So sometimes legal engineers are technologists who become familiar with legal processes, having developed their legal knowledge after years of working in tech roles at law firms. So they gain that knowledge of legal process and services over time, and that allows them to then, and I'm assuming a big part of Wavelength's business is to go into firms and look at the processes that they already exist, detail how you can streamline those processes, where you can make changes, and also where you can implement technology and bring in those things to help with that process. So that seems to be the legal engineers bridge the gap between the technology side and the legal process side.
Yeah, and that sort of hybrid or melding of expertise is useful, I think, because, you and I, from our own experiences, have come across that, haven't we, where I might say to you, I've got this problem and I think I could do it this way or that way, and you might say, well, have you thought about doing this, because this bit of technology exists, which I may not have known anything about, and vice versa, I'm sure. Or at least I'd like to think I've taught you a thing or two over the years. So that.
Yes, I think a couple of bits and pieces. I
at
think
least one.
This law stuff is pretty easy, though. The techie side's difficult. The law's simple.
Anyway, the sort of the amalgamation of those two bits of expertise, and somewhere in between, it's not surprising really that there is I don't want to call them a consultancy in case that's doing down what they are doing, but that's essentially a role that they are playing. And if you look at their website, for as long as it remains up, they have some case study examples on there for one of their customers where they've obviously gone to somebody fairly senior in the legal team and said, what problems are you having? And this in-house, I think it was a general counsel, was saying, well, look, we're struggling sometimes with other parts of the business sending us instructions by email or phone. And so instructions are coming in different ways. Sometimes they don't even need legal input. And it was just a bit messy by the sounds of things. So they've sat, listened, done several interviews, rewritten the process, and they've now have a sort of onboarding an automated onboarding process of legal instructions, and everything can flow neatly from that. And so obviously Simmons and Simmons are seeing this as valuable expertise that they can use with their customers. And in fact, the quote from Jeremy Hoyland, who's the managing partner at Simmons & Simmons, says, "This is an exciting opportunity for the firm and one that will give our clients a clear advantage." So he's obviously thinking this is useful. This acquisition is great for us, but actually useful for our customers as well. So
yeah, it's an interesting thing, isn't it? And you think, I wonder. He talks about their clients, but you would assume that Wavelength are more geared towards talking to legal firms, and Simmons and Simmons clients aren't going to be legal firms.
No,
but I'm imagining that Wavelength's expertise bridges more than just the legal industry. But I also wonder if, as I said, we've got an article later on by Mark Cohen about collaboration in the legal industry, and maybe they're looking at something like that as well. Maybe Simmons and Simmons are looking to push their services out to other legal firms.
Maybe
and collaborate with them.
Maybe. I mean, just look at what the Wavelength side of that has said in terms of that it says that the potential to deploy data science, technology, and design to reimagine the delivery of legal service is huge. That element of things suggests it's customer focused, but you're right. I mean, the data and whatnot will transfer from one firm to another as you go through both litigation and transactional files. It's a transfer of information from one organization to another through the lawyers. And it strikes me that if they are going to hit this collaboration idea, which Mark talks about, that is a good acquisition for them. And presumably the guys at Wavelength have existing customers or had existing customers at other law firms, and then they can work in a more collaborative way. I don't know whether that was Simmons & Simmons' primary purpose for the acquisition or not, but I'd be interested to see whether that is something they're thinking about, because a transaction only goes as fast as the slowest piece. So if they can help other firms move their transactions faster, then that's good for them. They'll get paid faster.
Yeah, definitely. And the Simmons & Simmons acquisition seems on the surface of it, because Wavelength are would seem to be more of a services organisation. That seems like potentially a good match there of Simmons & Simmons being able to deliver a new service to people. The Thomson Reuters acquisition of HighQ, in honesty, I'm a little more nervous about. Okay. But that's having come from a software development background and having come from companies that have had similar mergers where your company has bought out another one, or vice versa, and suddenly two software companies become one, and are looking to then integrate their products and things like that. And personally, from my own experience, that's never worked out brilliantly well in the long term. But yeah, let's have a talk about that. So Thomson Reuters have acquired HighQ, and one of the quotes from their things: Thomson Reuters has snapped up legal software provider HighQ, making good on plans to bolster its cloud-based software products after selling its legal managed services arms Pangea to Ernst Young. Now that's something we covered in a few episodes ago, where obviously Thomson Reuters got quite a big injection of capital when they sold off this services arm. So they've always been looking to make some acquisitions.
I think it's part of their plan,
Yeah. And Lucinda Case, who is the managing director, said, this deal is huge and transformational for us. Now, from I think there's another quote from Jim Leeson, who's Thomson Reuters customer proposition lead, said the team would be taking its time to integrate HighQ, and said, our customers face an explosion of legal technology. Buying HighQ gives us a foundational platform to integrate our own productivity tools with. So this is where the difficulty comes with these kind of mergers. I mean, HighQ, obviously not of the same size or scale as Thomson Reuters, but have a substantial software offering. Which, although allows for integration is a different product.
Yeah.
It's going to take a substantial amount of time to integrate that with the Thomson Reuters products. There is already some integration there. I think there's already some integration between Contract Express and HighQ, moving data about.
Yeah.
So they've done some of it, but what you're expecting as a customer now is for these product suites to become fully integrated where you can't see the seams in them. And from my experience, that takes a lot of time and often doesn't ever happen fully.
A lot of time in today's market is about a week, right? So they'll be done in a fortnight.
Maybe it could be done in a fortnight or so. So by the next podcast,
fully integrated
solution.
Yeah, I know what you mean. I think I have some similar reservations. And HighQ, for those who don't know, it says here it's a file sharing and collaboration platform. I think Thomson Reuters already had their own sort of case management solution, and I don't think that was necessarily brilliantly integrated with other products that they have. Like I think they have Westlaw, if I'm not mistaken, which is your sort of statute book and cases of updates, and that doesn't integrate brilliantly, although it's getting better with PLC, which is the Practical Law Company. Practical Law Company has its own fast draft. I don't think that may be using Contract Express, but I don't think it doesn't work brilliantly together. There's a lot of work for them to do already. I'm sure there's integration people at Thomson Reuters who've got more on their plate than they can handle, and they're about to get some more again. So,
I mean, I'm from a developer standpoint and a technology standpoint, I'm sure that both companies have got big enough teams that are up to the task.
Yeah,
it's going to be the commercial pressures that cause the problems in this, because it's not a easy thing to integrate this stuff, and it's not something that often reaps massive rewards either. So although at the moment it's stated as a priority, I wonder how much of a priority it will be.
Yeah, I think you made the point earlier, didn't you? I mean, okay, they talk in this article about how many clients and customers HighQ has. It says, I thought this was interesting. Founded in 2001, and yet it was part of Allen & Overy's Fuse incubator. I mean, how can you be, 18 years old and then still going into an incubator, but already boasting, as it says, more than 400 customers? Anyway, I don't know, but so it says, including nearly half of the global 100 law firms. So, they already have a huge customer base. So maybe it's about Thomson Reuters acquiring additional customers and then potentially upselling whatever else they have. But we'll see. But for anyone who's at HighQ or Thomson Reuters and dealing with the integration side of things and is thinking about next steps for themselves, then, come and get in touch with us.
Yeah, that's right. And also, it will be interesting to see what happens with these things and see where this does actually lead. It's the suggestion was that, and I think I read it in one of the postings, that they were going to leave things alone for sort of 18 months or so, because HighQ had quite a big milestone delivery coming up. So they were going to focus their efforts on that before they made any fundamental changes anywhere. Again, from experience and stuff, around a year or so, those changes are probably going to come. Suddenly, Thomson Reuters have sort of twice as many developers and decide, do they need that many? The same with all the other staff and things. So although from a corporate standpoint, these things are fantastic news. From an employee standpoint, it's not normally as great a news for you. But let's see how it go. It's certainly a big acquisition. Well, to start with, and
they have got some collaborating to themselves, haven't they? So I think we'll leave that story and see what happens, and then maybe move on to the other collaboration story which we have, which is Mark Cohen's article in I think it's Forbes again, and there's just so much good stuff in this that you and I have read it separately and highlighted a lot of the same things, and then we've highlighted different things. So
this will be required reading this week. So we'll go over to the Forbes. We'll put the link up there. Go and have a look at this and read through this article because it's really good stuff.
Yeah. It's only 5 pages long, and I think so. It'll take it won't take 10 minutes to read or so. And there's so much in there that we can't cover all of it, but. Let's just read a few quotes out that we've picked out, both of us. So, collaboration is essential for competitiveness, which often doesn't really ring true, doesn't it? You often think that the opposite, but organizations that collaborate internally with others in the supply chain, and most especially with clients, are far more likely to succeed than those that do not. I guess maybe an example of that, we'll see how that works out as far as Wavelength and Simmons and Simmons go, because they weren't exactly competitors, and they are in the same industry but at different stages of the supply chain. Law's innovation mania focuses more on the search for a tech silver bullet than scalable business models that respond to unmet consumer needs and expectations. Why not fine-tune existing delivery models? I particularly like that because we've talked before about trying to find the silver bullet. I think, in fact, you've said those exact words, and easier said than done, I think.
Yeah, and this is where we looked at the various incubators and accelerators and all that kind of thing, and the products that are coming on to the legal tech marketplace that solve a very small part of a big problem. We talked last week about exigence investment. They're looking to fund new startups and things like that, and they in that article, I think it's David Holm, wasn't it? Who was saying he sees a lot of the investment as just money being thrown at the wall so far in legal tech, and this goes on to the same thing where people seem to be searching for that silver bullet of just looking at the tech, thinking, where can we use this? Here's a use case for it. Let's put a product in there and see if that reaps us loads of rewards and loads of business from it, rather than looking at things on a grander scale.
Yeah, and invariably that doesn't work, does it? Because you look at the buzz stuff, and the buzz is AI and blockchain and virtual or augmented reality and things like that, and those are all wonderful, but that they aren't necessarily where the problems lie, or at least those solutions aren't necessarily going to fix the real problems that people have. And step one, Ash, I think we talked about in a previous show where we were talking about I think the introductory session on project management, where we talked about what Mark Laster had said, which was to look at what problems you have first, look at how the job is done, and think about things more holistically than trying to just slap a solution onto a problem that you have. It's looking at things much more holistically.
And I want to say on this thing, Mark is talking about collaboration here, and when it comes to these legal tech collaboration, one of the things we see as well is that all of the legal firms seem to, or a lot of the big legal firms seem to be going for their own accelerators, looking at their own products. I mean, is it not time for some of these big firms to join together? And I can imagine if you had several of the top Magic Circle firms and stuff, if they launched their own incubator or own accelerator as one, for me that would make more sense. You've then got a new startup working with multiple firms, and those firms collaborating on those products, rather than just tailoring something for their own needs, which is what you tend to get.
Yeah, indeed. And I suppose birds of a feather will flock together, and the large firms are probably coming across each other all the time on transactions. They will not come across the smaller high street firms doing wills and conveyancing and probate. But generally speaking, working with a particular cohort of people who are on opposite sides of each other all the time, and then working together on a single solution has got to be a better move than creating your own tool, especially if other people aren't going to be using that tool or aren't going to be reaping the benefits of it. You're really only looking at one half of the equation, no matter how good that tool is. If your customer doesn't use it, or if other solicitors aren't using it,
Yeah.
you're really not maximizing its potential. So, do you want to pick out some more stuff?
Yeah. So I think one of the interesting quotes that he makes in there as well is that, and especially in private practice and things, the yardsticks for success are generally hours billed and revenue originated, not achieving rapid, efficient, creative solutions to client challenges.
Yeah.
So, he's saying that, the top lawyers in firms and the goal of most lawyers in a firm is to generate revenue, get your hours billed in. That's how you rise up through the ranks, and that's how you make a name for yourself, rather than bringing about change within the organisation. And I think that's somewhere where we feel might be changing.
Slowly and surely. We had a quick look at Roll on Friday before we came on live, and I was a little surprised that the firms that were not necessarily, or at least didn't have chargeable hours targets on their page. But nonetheless, if you go to Roll on Friday or any other, the Lawyer or whatever, you'll find publications of what the chargeable hours targets are for firms. And a chargeable hour is not really. That's how you're monitoring the amount of effort and time and resource that goes into doing a particular transaction. But it isn't really how people are billing anymore. We've talked about that plenty of times in the past. It's not how the customers particularly want to be billed, and so it doesn't seem to me to make much sense in assessing people's performance in that way. Particularly as the delivery, and we've seen it in other articles. We may come on to it later, but the delivery of legal services is in itself its own. It's becoming its own sphere, isn't it? Its own market, if you like.
Yeah.
Managed legal services, and that's the delivery of an outcome. It isn't necessarily about advice as you go along. It's a different type of product, and monitoring people's progress and performance in terms of just hours is really not with keeping with the current trends.
No, and one of the things he mentioned on this comes about, and he said, that lawyers have been accustomed to calling the shots because they enjoyed a monopoly on the one thing they sold, and that they alone possessed legal expertise. We've seen in recent months that's no longer the case with these big accountancy firms now providing legal services. It's not just the lawyers anymore that have this knowledge and have this expertise.
Yeah.
People are encroaching on that now.
Indeed. And also the customers are much smarter than they used to be, and they don't necessarily just see what the lawyer says as golden anymore. Another phrase in here that says lawyers have grown accustomed to lecturing instead of listening. Well, none of our listeners will do that because, we said quite clearly last week.
Exactly.
Part of the project management tool is scoping the job, and you can't do that if you don't ask loads of questions.
So go back to your notes for last week, and we will be testing you.
Yes. Absolutely. There's a test before you can have any of the information, for sure. They seldom ask what the client's objectives are, and more often than not pitch what they sell, rather than listen to the prospective client's or customer's problem and offer a pathway to its solution. Well, that's exactly what we talked about last week, isn't it? It's really listening and providing tailored advice. That will be... the advisory part of the business will, I'm sure, become quite distinct from the delivery part of the business as things go on.
Yeah, and along with that, is one of the other quotes he has in here is that clients, not lawyers, now call the shots. Clients now determine whether, when, from what model, and at what price lawyers are required. So, as you say, the clients are becoming smarter now. They're deciding when they need the legal services. They're not just letting the lawyers and the legal firms drive that for them.
Yeah.
They're actually looking for it themselves.
Yeah, I mean, it's interesting, and the customers are they're getting much more switched on. They know what they want. They know when they need it. You look at that Wavelength example, the case study of that is a customer of legal services, but even internally, the in-house legal team is treating themselves somewhat differently to their own internal customers, but they've found a way to improve their offering by working with their internal customers. And now, with the Simmons Simmons acquisition, they will probably find it easier still when they have to instruct external counsel. So, it's about finding better ways of working together externally with people outside of the organization, internally within the organization. It's a very, very different it's just a different environment, and you can feel some big changes coming.
Yeah, I mean, I know in the discussions of how you've been dealing with customers and stuff yourself, that there are changes coming, and people are, the organisations are now engaging with lawyers in different ways now and requiring different things.
Yeah, it's different billing systems, it's different timing expectations. They want you to be more a member of their own team rather than an external legal advisor. It's just a very, very different market, and there are exciting times ahead on that. I found this bit quite interesting. We haven't put this down specifically for quoting in the notes, but this whole movement in Singapore Academy of Law, launching a series of initiatives designed to apply the nation-state digital focus to the legal function. There's lots of stuff in there about how Singapore is doing it. So I'd recommend to anybody to read that section of things.
Yeah.
But moving a little bit on from that, Mark then talks about this idea of the global legal community being fashioned by social media, the proliferation of tech-enabled new legal providers, and a handful of new age gatherings. More of a Woodstock than a traditional vendor-centric law conferences. You still sadly have a lot of the old traditional law conferences, which are expensive to attend, and they're very salesy and whatnot. But the new stuff, like we've talked about before, we've talked about the Legal Global Hackathon. I think that was episode 1.
Yeah.
We've mentioned Legal Geek. I think that was episode 1.
We always mention Legal Geek.
We have to. I mean, it's a big thing here.
It is.
Isn't it?
And they do such good stuff. It's
exactly.
It's hard to ignore.
And I'd not heard of the World Legal Summit, so we'll have to look at that. But he says there are standout examples of the global legal community and what they're building, which is fostering collaboration and not selling, reimagining the legal conferences and expanding their parameters beyond lawyers, vendors, and self-promotion. There's one obvious exception and missing from that list that Mark's put, and that's the Panachecast.
Exactly.
Mark, where's the mention of the podcast?
Yeah. I mean, this is the second mention we've made of you, Mark. It's I mean, I know the stuff you do is really good, but
this is just a big omission.
Yeah, it's a big omission for us not to be in that list, But
he's right, because you and I have talked about this a lot in the past, and everything that we're doing is not designed to sell what we're doing. It's just to talk about what the industry is doing, how it's changing, how it's evolving, what's possible, quick wins, you can just feel the community spirit amongst it. And we mention Legal Geek a lot, and because if you go along, you'll very quickly understand what that's all about.
Yeah, I mean, they've showed that with their recent event in New York and stuff, where they've branched out to America for the first time. They bring so many people together from all different parts of the industry.
Yeah,
put them in the same room together. There's talks which cross the boundaries of technology and legal process and everything like that. So it just brings everyone together to work on these things.
It does, yeah. And going to those things is brilliant. And you and I, the first year that we went, we got talking to some people who were interested in what we were doing and whether they could work with us. And it wasn't quite the right fit for us, but they were very much more in the delivery of legal services, and they didn't necessarily have the technology behind it. And as I say, it wasn't quite right for us, but nonetheless, there was an opportunity there almost without any effort whatsoever. We got chatting to the guy who was running that organization, and I think most people, if they've not been to something like Legal Geek or one of the others, if they go along, they'll find very quickly and easily that there are opportunities out there to work with others, and most people are quite receptive to it.
Yeah, so it's one of those things where you don't want the collaboration to be companies buying other companies, is how they increase their service offering and how they work with others. You want these organizations to just work with each other.
Yeah.
The legal landscape is changing, and there's new threats coming in from outside encroaching on the business. These law firms shouldn't be concerned with banding together and building solutions and looking at new processes as a whole, rather than just going it on their own and trying to push their own agendas onto everyone else.
Yeah.
There must be a better way of doing that, and I think that's what Mark is hinting at here, in that, collaboration is the key way forward in this.
Yeah, definitely.
And as you said previously, it's one of the things. We're a legal tech startup. We don't have any fear of talking about other legal tech startups, because it's one of those things where you want the whole thing to progress together and get better together.
Absolutely. And I mean, the news that we've got coming out is all about collaboration as well. And again, it's still a bit early for us to be going into the detail of it, but I think people, when they see it, will realize that, yeah, actually that's a different way of doing it. And it is very collaborative, and we're here to invite people to help us along the way. And likewise, if we can work with others, then that's great. And let's be honest, if Microsoft and Apple can work together, then anyone can do it, right? So,
yeah, I mean, you do see that kind of collaboration happening. I mean, Microsoft have for a long time built their own products. Their Internet Explorer browser that moved to their Edge browser, they were very keen of building it all themselves. Even they have now moved to using what is effectively the Google Chrome framework for their new Edge browser. They've realized that going it alone and trying to do your own thing isn't always the best solution. If someone else is doing something that is just as good as better and is more widely used, why not take advantage of that? And there's a lot of companies like tech companies like that who are now joining together on certain projects and things like that. And that's what we want to see in the legal industry as well.
We do. And I mean, I don't know, you don't see a massive amount, do you, at the smaller end of people working together? And I guess that's because everybody's on their own mission and it's quite difficult to actually find the time to do it. But yeah, we do want to see that, I think, because there's loads of really great new stuff out there. It's difficult for any one organization to manage every type of technology that's available and to cater for all the problems that there are that need solving, and there are loads of problems that need solving. So it would be good to see more of the startups working together, and the Legal Geek is one way of doing that. You've got the startup map, and there's loads of people on that, and hopefully many of them will have a chance to work together.
Yeah, and maybe some of this collaboration will be, will come from outside entities. We've the event we're going to talk about later is one from the HM Land Registry. Their Digital Street initiative is where they, as an outside organisation, have gone out and asked for input from other organisations, from the existing legal organisations, getting them to work together for a common goal. So maybe some of these collaboration projects will, I don't want to say be forced on the legal firms, but will become from outside sources.
Yeah. And even the Land Registry, not just with the startups on the legal side, they're part of the GO6, aren't they? So they're working with the other quasi-governmental organizations to share the data more appropriately and improve their own service. So collaboration seems to be the answer for them. So I think Mark's got that one absolutely right.
And he says in conclusion, collaboration is an essential success ingredient for legal professionals and organizations in the emerging global legal marketplace. Technology platforms that provide data and access to global resources will accelerate change in the buy-sell dynamic. The industry is changing and the way these things are changing, so you have to meet those things, and the more the technology embraces this kind of collaboration as well, that's only a good thing. And as you say, it's one of the things that we're working towards with what we're doing with our platform that we're building, is to make that as open as we can, to allow that kind of collaboration to happen.
Yeah, definitely.
Because it's difficult going it alone. So
very difficult. Who has the time?
Exactly. So
cover it all.
Let's get others involved. Shall we? If we just. I just want to mention that the Digital Street thing, as we picked up on it. Then there's there's a webinar that they've got on Thursday, the 8th of August. There's a link that we'll have in the description where you can go and register for that webinar. It's a Digital Street Tokenisation showcase.
Sounds blockchainy to me.
Sounds blockchainy, you reckon? Well, their description of it is, over the past 3 months, we have been working with members of the Digital Street community. So there we say collaboration, it's straight there, to understand the opportunities and challenges relating to the tokenization of land and property. We believe that in the future, citizens will want to be able to request a digital token representing their property ownership. during this session, we're going to be showcasing our learnings and demonstrating the prototype that we have been working on to explore this concept. So we've pulled out a couple of blog posts previously where they've talked about how they've taken a existing transaction that's happened and showed how it could be done using blockchain and things like that. And it looks like that's what they're going to focus on, and demoing that kind of thing. So again, interesting stuff from the land registry and how they're going to be using blockchain and things like that.
Yeah, absolutely. So anybody who is thinking of conveyancing solutions or whatever, land registry is obviously, well, you could say it's the most important part of the transaction. They're pushing ahead with digitization.
Yeah.
Tokenization as well. So 8th of August, did you say? Yeah, Thursday the 8th of August, that webinar. The links will be in the notes after the show.
Yeah. And so we've covered for the past couple of episodes, we've had 2 sessions on legal project management. I think we've covered scoping.
Where we've covered scoping in a lot of detail. We had a sort of a gentle introduction to it for people who are a bit scared and who aren't doing it and who don't necessarily have the resource. And so we've set out at least our thoughts on it and how you might go about starting that process. That was episode 12.
Yep.
And then last episode 13, we talked much more detail about the scoping and setting out what we did it in the context of a conveyancing transaction and a purchase. And we've said about, breaking the job down into its component parts and setting out literally every step that you will go through in order to get a transaction from start to finish, including the stuff which might appear to be outside of the work itself. So that's the client onboarding and then the post completion reviews and so on, because it's all ultimately time that you take on your transactions. And especially if you're keen on delivering a good service, you've got to go back and review the service that you've given and make sure that you're continually improving on that. So having set the backbone to that, then next time what we'll look at is pricing and how you go through and each item or groups of items and setting out different prices and how you might price things a bit differently, whether it's recording time to each element of the job or group of elements, or whether you don't bother with time recording at all. We'll talk about that in a bit more detail next time.
We're going to be putting up some materials on this as well. You've been documenting stuff we've gone through, so we'll let you know once that's available and where you can get that from, and that'll allow you to have a look at this stuff offline. It'll allow you to prepare better for the tests we'll be setting everyone at the end of the sessions.
That's right.
when we just to make sure you have been studying all this stuff, that we're paying attention to the podcast. So we'll let you know when that's available and where you can get all that from. As I say, check out the Patreon, so patreon.com/Panache Software. That'll probably be one of the first places where we'll provide the links for that kind of stuff. But we'll be continuing that in the next week or so as well.
We'll have a couple of episodes on that, and we'll see how far we can take it and hopefully give as much useful information to people out there as we can.
Great. Okay. Well, should we end it there then for the moment? There's a lot of stuff's been happening. Some of the stuff we haven't covered this week, which we could have done, so we might pick up some other things next week that we've missed off. Until... I keep saying next week, but it's not going to be next week. We'll get there eventually. So in a couple of weeks, we'll see you again.
Till then,
great.
Bye.